All right, guys, welcome in. It is Monday. I can't believe it, November the 25th, and it is Gobble Gobble. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. We are packed this week in the world of college basketball, but we are here to bring you another edition of the Happy Hour Tip-Off Show, powered by WagerTalk.com. He is Ralph Michaels. I am Joe Raineri. You can, of course, follow him at CalSportsLV, at Joe Raineri on Twitter. And it's funny, Ralph, we'll start off today that you quizzed us a little bit here today on your Twitter page, asking a question that actually it's a very important question that you asked today here, especially for tonight.
It is, and we're going to talk about this game more in our featured matchups, but hey, welcome. If you guys haven't seen the show, Joe and I do this every Monday through Friday. It's posted about 2 o'clock Eastern, and what we do is we do a quick recap of yesterday, giving you the top players, the biggest covers, the biggest upsets. We look at the biggest line movers, the games taking the most bets. We give you a situational play. We give you underdogs that we think can win outright on the money line. We do a couple featured games, and then we give you best bets. It's pretty short. It's pretty simple. You're going to learn a lot about college basketball. You're going to learn a lot about college basketball teams. It's a great view every day. Let's go ahead and start this show off with the answer to the question. And I tweeted this question out, Joe, and one of my Twitter corrected me already. I tweeted out the question was, which college basketball team is 5-0, winning by an average of 13.4 points per game, but is not led at halftime in any of those games? Well, why is that so important? Well, because that team, the Oklahoma Sooners, which we're going to talk about more, is certainly a team you would look to fade in the first half. Perhaps play against them in the first half, play on them in the second half. Look, their schedule, UTSA, they were tied at the halftime. They won by 18. Minnesota, down by 4 at halftime, won by 9. Oregon State. Now, when I tweeted this, I went through Ken Palm to check the numbers. Ken Palm actually has a score wrong. So they did lead Oregon State by 1. My tweet is off a little bit, but the same notion there. They ended up winning by 8. William & Mary, they were down 4 at halftime. They won by 5. And Maryland East Shore, their last game, a blowout win, they were actually down by 1 at halftime.
Wow.
So, again, it's a team that I certainly wouldn't play on for the first half. If you like the opposite side, perhaps think about making 2 bets, a first half bet and a bet, or perhaps just looking to fade, and we'll see if that continues. Well, Joe, let's get into our regular format and talk about some of those top performers from yesterday.
Let's get them up there, and I hope I have the right list because I got 900 lists, but does that look about right, Ralph, there with Terry Taylor, Tyree Marshall, and Dylan Alderson?
Player in every team. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
But I'll tell you what, when he puts up 37 points and 16 rebounds, if you ever find a game where he's out, you know it's going to be an important clue. The other top performers on Saturday, Tyree Marshall from Rider, 15 rebounds, 25 points. Dylan Anderson from Toledo, he played a nobody. Northwestern Ohio's an AI school, so no real competition, but 30 points and 6 rebounds. And also on Saturday, Dantez Walton from Northern Kentucky, in 33 minutes, put up 33 points and 10 rebounds.
Damn. And then, of course, yesterday, Cleetrell Pope, Bethune-Cookman over St. Francis there, 22 points, 17, 3, 2, and 3, Ralph. And Jordan Dartis, Ohio, Middle Tennessee, about 32, 2, 4, and 3. And finally, KJ Riley and Evansville, Morgan State. Again, we find ourselves talking about Evansville a lot here, especially KJ Riley, 36, 4, 3, and 1. And they don't seem to go away, Ralph. It's a lot of Evansville early on this season.
Well, they've had a couple losses tweeted in there, so those people that played against them. But, yeah, you and I already know, if you knew nothing about college basketball and you've tuned in and watched our show, you know that KJ Riley is a person that is pretty important to that team.
Yes, big time. All right, now let's take a look at some of these upsets that we got going on here this week, Ralph. And, take your pick here. Some very interesting ones, too. Penn Providence, line was 15, 81-75. You had Detroit. Was a neutral site. Was that one in Charleston? Where was that played?
The Detroit Irvine game
Yeah.
was, I don't think it was Charleston. Continue on, and I will have the answer for that by the time we get to it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you can go down there. I mean, even Ryder, Vermont was another one of these neutral site games. 8.5 was the light, 72-67. And keep in mind, guys, tomorrow there is going to be, 10 tournaments going on at once. Welcome to the holiday season. It's going to be absolutely crazy. But, hey, Sac State Pepperdine away. That was an away game. 9.5 was the line there. 77-72 in that matchup, Ralph. But, yeah, I mean, those tournaments we had over this weekend, and now we're going to have a boatload of tournaments again starting throughout the Thanksgiving week here.
All right, Joe, just so people know we're human, I'm going to call myself out and say, duh. The Detroit game was here in Las Vegas. So,
okay.
What a brain fart that was on my part. As soon as I clicked on it, I realized where it was.
And I said, oh, they were on the West Coast, weren't they? Yes, no, that's exactly. Well, again, it's going to get even harder to manage here, Ralph, over the next couple of days.
Yeah, no question. And then, just so Joe makes fun of my color coding, when we look at the largest ATS and over-under covers, the green is money, so that's for the ATS cover.
Yes.
The blue is for the sky, so it's over. Brown is dirt, so it's under. And that was my old school ways when I used to do Excel with color codings. When I'm looking at totals on over-unders, I've always done it. So, Detroit, obviously, with the upset, was the biggest cover of the weekend. UConn over Miami of Florida surprised me, that blowout win covering by 23.5.
Is UConn back?
Yeah, UConn is back. They really are. And Nevada, a nice comeback. They're starting over, and, they blew Valpo out. And that's not a typo. For those that follow me on Twitter, I tweeted it out. That is a 92.5-point cover there, Joe.
That is just, yeah.
Now, it was 3 overtimes, and I did tweet out all those that have covered by over 80 points. There were a handful of teams that covered by 80 points, but the 3 overs, Cincinnati, Bowling Green, Rhode Island, LSU, and then, again, Evansville and Morgan. I guess if you're in 3 overtimes and your team scores 115, all of a sudden that 30 doesn't look that big.
Yeah. And then you had some monster, unders, like you said, the dirt there looking at Arizona State, Virginia. But should we be surprised anymore anytime with the unders in Virginia? I mean, is it already that time of year?
I wasn't smart enough to play the under again. They did it to Syracuse. They did it again. They had one of their games go over by a couple points in the middle there. But that's what you're looking at. You're looking at tempo. Virginia sets a new precedence. And, that 124 line, when we get to February, if those same teams played, you'd probably be at 118. The reason is, though, Vegas doesn't need to drop them any lower than that because they're getting equal money. Money. When it gets later in the year, they will get one-sided money, and those totals will be much less to your advantage
than what they are. All right, Ralph. So right around this time, we love to talk a little TNA, some trends and angles that Ralph's comes up with to help us better take a look at some of these games that are on the slate here. So what did you come up with today, Ralph? A little TNA.
I just pulled out some over-under situations for games today. One is Arkansas and Georgia Tech. Arkansas, Bill Musselman, the head coach in Nevada, who now is at Arkansas, he has them off to a 5-0 ATS start. Well, they're also 0-5 over-under with 5 straight unders. Georgia Tech, 1-8 over-under their last 9 at home. So they're facing each other today. Arkansas, 5 straight unders. Georgia Tech, 1-8 over-under their last 9 at home. Grand Canyon, 13-3 to the over. They're playing today. Fordham, 1-9 over-under. The interesting thing about Fordham is Fordham had 9 straight unders until their last game that went over the total. And that last game over was that Grand Canyon team I just mentioned that was 13-3 to the over. So something had to give in that game, and it ended up going over by 2.5 points. So that's the kind of thing I look at and say, am I worried that Fordham's that broke their streak and they're going over? No, they played a dead over team, and it went over by a hoop. And finally, Tennessee playing up tempo a little bit. They're 9-1-1 to the over their last 11 games.
Now, and of course, we always like to take a look at the schedule here, take a look at some of these dogs that are on the schedule here, Ralph. And They're not necessarily, and we always like to point out, whether it be a money line dog or one of these underdogs that might just surprise a few people. Am I crazy to be looking here at, and call me nuts, but I know Auburn is, we got Auburn that likes to play up-tempo route, but they're taking on a team that we have talked a lot about here on the show. How about Auburn, New Mexico, where, what is New Mexico? I think they're a top 15 or 16 tempo team. You're taking on Auburn. Both of these teams are going to like to run. The line is 7.5, Ralph, but the Lobos, they got a very balanced attack. What do they got? 5 guys, I think, that are averaging double figures. They've got a couple of seniors there, a couple of upperclassmen. They do play some defense. Would you be shocked if New Mexico actually pulled off this upset against Auburn?
No, I was on them against New Mexico State. That was one of the underdog picks last week on the show. And Jaquan Lyle is a transfer in Ohio State, a 6'5" guard who's their leading scorer and has made him a new dynamic. So they're going to press the tempo. There's no question. Ken Palm has them number 17 in tempo, number 13 in offense overall. And, you look at Auburn. Well, Auburn's played right now the number 160. I don't even see it that high of a schedule. You've played the only top 100 team they played was Davidson, and that was on a neutral court, and they won that game 76-66. So New Mexico probably a touch below Davidson, but New Mexico certainly a top 100 team.
Yeah, and you got one of those up-tempo type of situation. The over might be something you want to look at there, too. Going to be a ton of shots in this game. Who are you looking at, Ralph, on the dog area?
I've gone back and forth, and I think I'm going to the Fort Myers tip-off in Fort Myers, and it's Pittsburgh against Kansas State. This totals, you want to talk about totals, Joe, this totals 115. You're talking 2 of the slowest tempo teams, obviously, in the country. And, for those, again, that don't follow me on Twitter, I tweeted this out. In the last 4 seasons, in November, when you have an over-under total of 20 or less, those teams have actually gone 4 overs and 15 unders. So you've gone under 79% of the time. So don't be worried about a 115 total. The reason it's a 115 total is because you got 2 teams playing at snail paces. Right now, Pittsburgh's adjusted tempo is 344, K-State's 285. Which means that if teams shoot their normal 40-some% at that pace, you're just going to get not enough shots. So, I think Pittsburgh is a live dog. I'm happy what Jeff Capel has done for him in his season now. This is his second season here. You're starting to see some of the buy-in. Yeah, they lost at Nicholls State at home, but that was coming off the Florida State upset win. And yes, they lost to West Virginia at home, but that's not a horrible loss with that defense they can play. So I think Pitt gets the win here. They're only a small dog, but I do like them.
It's interesting, Ralph, as we take a look at the market here and seeing who's doing what, and we always like to take a look at some of the big movers and shakers. Where is the line moving? Where's the total? Where is all the money going? And one of the games late tonight, Ralph, how about BYU UCLA? Seems to be getting a ton of action, and it's actually flipped. Opened up with BYU as a 1.5 favorite. It is now flipped UCLA, getting a whole bunch of money. They are now a 2-point favorite in some books, 1.5, 2-point favorite. The total has remained the same, but no doubt UCLA getting a very big percentage of the money, even though they didn't open up as the favorite in this game.
I don't agree with the move. I actually lean with the BYU side. UCLA's coming off that loss to Hofstra, and if people think, well, Mick Cronin's just going to turn this team around, I mean, I love the guy as a coach. He's finally bringing defense to the Bruins. He was the Cincinnati head coach forever. But they hadn't been tested. UCLA's toughest game before that was either UNLV or Southern Utah. Hofstra was the best team they played, and they lost by 10 at home. Now they're playing a neutral setting against the BYU team. with, Mark Pope. I'm a fan of this BYU team. I lost on them. I played on them against Boise, and they had a shot to get the last second shot, and the game went into overtime, and they lost by 4. But their losses are to a very good San Diego State team and a very good Boise State team. And Mark Pope's from he's a guy that had so much success at Utah Valley, getting him to 25-10 the previous year. A couple transfers came over with him from Utah Valley, including his top player. I disagree with the line move. I like BYU.
Nice. I'll give you another one, too, that flipped here, Ralph. How about Nevada taking on Bowling Green, 8 o'clock Eastern time, opened up. Bowling Green is a 2-point favorite, Ralph. That didn't last long because Nevada getting all the money, getting all the love. They are now a 2.5-point favorite across the books here. That's you're talking about a 4-point swing there, Ralph, between opening and what it is right now. I mean, did you agree with this move here? Is Nevada worthy of that kind of split?
Not really, but I understand it. I mean, you're looking at Nevada, who's off an easy win against Valpo, while Bowling Green is off an overtime upset win against Cincinnati. So, from the perspective of playing back-to-back days, and you're off a battle against Cincinnati, an in-state foe that you get to knock off in overtime. So situationally, I can understand a line move. No play in the game for me, but clearly there's a reason.
Yeah, and it's interesting as we look. One of the games also getting a whole lot of tickets as far as the handle goes, Ralph. There was one, of course, we told you about BYU, UCLA getting a whole lot of love. You had mentioned Pittsburgh, Kansas State. That is also up there. But how about Northwestern and Bradley? Little Mo Valley tonight at 8:30 p.m. Also seems to be getting an awful lot of love in this game here, Ralph, as, believe it or not, we've watching Bradley go from a 2-point favorite to a 3.5, being pushed up to 4 in a couple of books too as well. You think Bradley deserves all the outpouring of support they've been getting right now?
I do. I think, originally the line was just there because you think a Big Ten team is going to be better than a Mountain West team, but right. Northwestern, probably the weakest team in the Big Ten. You already lost to Merrimack at home. You already lost to Radford at home. You just got by Norfolk State. So, yeah, you had one good win against Providence that some people saw. But, Bradley after a season opening loss to St. Joe's has reeled off 4 straight wins. But, again, they haven't played anyone either. They have yet to what you have to be careful of is, yes, Bradley's 4-1. But this is by far the best team they faced. Mm-hmm. So, not by far. Radford's a pretty good team. But, when you have teams with these records and you start taking the step up in class, that's when you have to analyzing how good is this team. And when they're taking a step up in class, how much do they lose from those stats that they had?
Perfect. All right, so now what we do is we'll take a look at any situational plays here, Ralph, today, revenge spots on the card before we talk about a couple of the marquee matchups here tonight, and, of course, our best bets. Is there anything that stuck out to you as far as situationally, anything on the card here tonight?
Joe, I'm going to go and do a totals play, and I'm just looking at when I ran November favorites of 9 or more with no rest. So there's so many of these tournament games. This is going to happen a lot. When you have a big favorite of 9 or more and you're on no rest, those games have gone 38, 53, and 1, 41.8% to the over, or 58.2% to the under. One game that fits that mold tonight is Cincinnati and Valpo under the total. So again, it's something people can look at moving forward. There's more tournaments tomorrow in the next few days. In November, favorites of 9 or more with no rest has been a 58.2% play to the under.
Love that. All right, let's talk about some of these featured games you've got here tonight, Ralph, that are circled. Both of these games in the Hall of Fame Classic, Kansas City. We'll start, I guess, with Butler taking on Missouri. Who do you like in this match? What's going on here?
Well, we picked these two games because obviously they have better teams. Both are on TV. So, when we do our games here for all the new viewers, when we're going through these games, we're not necessarily giving you a pick on all the premier games, but really what to look for, what we see in the team, what's going to happen. Both teams, interestingly, you think they're quality teams, and Butler 5-0, Missouri 4-1, but both failed to make the tournament last year. Both had down years. So, we expecting them to bounce back. Well, they have proven that they've bounced back. Butler last year hid their best player, no question. First team Big East, Kamar Baldwin. Last year they had no one around him. He had to score. If he didn't score enough, they lost. Well, they have enough scoring around him now, and that makes him a very, very special player when they have 4 players in double digits. And on the flip side, when you look at Missouri, Jeremiah Tillman is the person that I think is the most important person in this stretch for them. And I look at the game, and if I'm watching this game, and if one of those two get in foul trouble, I think the other team's going to have a definite advantage. It's going to be a lower scoring game. It might be the first one to 60 wins this game. And if I had to pick a side, I would lean Butler. But by no means is it opinion where I'm playing or I think anyone else should because of that. Joe, you have any thoughts on Butler and Missouri?
The thing that congratulations, the Bulldogs are off to a 5-0 start, Ralph. But according to our friends at KenPom, it's the 307th rated schedule. So let's not get crazy on the whole 5-0 situation right now. And then to me, the under is probably going to be the place I look. You're talking about a Missouri Tigers team that it's all about the defense. They're only giving up 53.8 points per game. That is 12th in defensive, 12th in the nation in points allowed. So neither of these teams give up a whole lot of points, but neither one of them has really played anybody to the caliber. This is going to be the best game both of these teams have played together tonight, Ralph.
Yeah, no question. So, keep an eye on these two guys we talked about. They're going to be the keys to the game. And again, we both agree that the under is probably the top opinion coming out of that.
Game number 2 there, and you mentioned them. Was part of your quiz that you put out there on Twitter, which is a good time to remind you guys. Don't forget, make sure you tail in Ralph at CalSportsLV on Twitter. Great stuff there. Always putting out great bits of information throughout the day that you need. And it all centered around Oklahoma never being able to go into halftime with a damn lead, Ralph. What's up with that? What's going on? Oklahoma versus Stanford tonight.
Well, you're looking at an Oklahoma team that has played decent competition. UTSA may not be, a top 150 team, but they're certainly better than playing some MEAC or SWAC teams, and then Minnesota, Oregon State, William and Mary. To me, I don't have an answer of why they've started so slow. You have an up-tempo offense. That's usually not the people that start slow. The people that start slow always tend to be the slower-paced offenses that don't put as much work into it. I look at it and, you clearly have another situation where, the schedule. Well, there's 353 teams. Stanford's played the 346 schedule. So let's see. There is someone that's played a worse team than Stanford. And the best opponent you faced was Santa Clara, at home. You got another situation here where you have a fat, and we're going to steal a term from Marco, if you guys watch Bet on it, Marco's fat and sassy team. Stanford being 6-0 with all 6 games being at home, all 6 games as a huge favorite coming out of it. So, it's a game we needed to talk about because it's going to be on ESPN. Oscar Da Silva, clearly the best player for Stanford, 6'9" guy, but he's matched against Barry Manick. So it's a good matchup of guys that are guys of that size. I am going to make a lean here and just go with the Oklahoma side. I just think, being down at the half makes you a tested team. I've got to know that they know they've been down by the half. I got to think that makes them come out and be, makes you put more emphasis on getting off to a quick start. You actually have the proximity. I'm sure they're going to have some fans being in Kansas City. So, is that where the Big 12 tournament is, right?
That's correct.
So, it's also going to be, I hadn't even thought about that. It's also going to be familiarity where they're playing in the same venue that they do every year. So, that would change my power ratings by a couple points, and that would have me leaning with Oklahoma.
The interesting thing about Stanford, as you mentioned, 346 rated schedule doesn't get much worse. One other team has played a worse schedule than that. But also, all 6 of their games, guys, have been home. So they have never been away from the Maple Center yet. So this will be their first foray out of their very comfort, home court advantage, so to speak. So it'll be interesting to see what they do here. They are coming off that 81-50 win over William and Mary. Defense has been strong. Interesting thing about the Sooners, though, is you're right. They are battle-tested, so to speak. They don't be interesting to see what they ever do with an actual lead going into halftime. But they don't defend the three all that well this year, Ralph, and that is going to be something interesting to watch. They have played at least a little bit tougher schedule this year than what Stanford has, but then again, you and I have played a tougher schedule than what Stanford has. But it's going to be interesting to see how many points are going to win this game. I don't think, both Stanford being away from home for the first time through 6 games this year, there is some familiarity there with Oklahoma. I get that, but I'm going to be interested to see how many points are scored in this game. I don't think there's going to be nearly as many points as some people are making it out to be, so I would lean the under in this matchup as well.
Yeah, Oklahoma struggled to shoot to 3 as well this year. So, yeah, I can't argue that point way at all, Joe.
Yep. All right, so now, guys, we'll take a look here at 2 of our best bets on the card. And, Ralph, is there a game that you have circled here that you are going to go ahead and dabble a little bit with?
Well, there's a game. Yeah. See, I have this game circled, but, I also have one game really circled. So, if you do want to go by my top play today, it's at Wager Talk for $9. Mm-hmm. I almost made it a 5%, Joe. And wow. I didn't make it a 5% because I had a 5% this past Friday on Santa Clara. And we all have bad beats. Trust me, it's college basketball. You're going to have bad beats every week. But Santa Clara was up 28, and they got outscored 17-1 down the stretch in the last 3.5 minutes, and I lose by a point. So that brutal 5% loss, I don't mind putting out a 5% play, but many times people think they're going to play catch up, or he's not going to lose 2 5% in a row, and they try to double up. So really, there's times when you're handicapping that you're also just making sure your patrons don't play too much on games. And when I have 5%, they've had so much success that is the case. So I made it a 4%. That's on sale for $9. And then I had one other play that my all access customers got. And it's a totals play, and it's in Oakland and Northern Illinois under the total. Okay. Game 775, 776. Low total, but we're looking at 2 tempo teams that are going to be slow. We're looking at 2 teams that play better defense than offense. Both have offensive issues. So when you have 2 bad offenses and 2 better defenses and 2 slow tempos, it's a total where I like under the total.
Yeah, guys, and don't forget, like Ralph said, make sure you guys head over to wagertalk.com. Ralph's plays are there. You can catch him under the handicappers page. It's $9 Monday, guys, so you can get his play today only, $9 if you get to wagertalk.com, and keep that in mind moving forward. Mondays, $9 Mondays at wagertalk.com. And Ralph, one of my best bets I'm looking at, and call me crazy, I've always got this little thing for Maui and the Maui Invitational, which is going to be one of these great tournaments that are coming up this week here, guys, which features, I find interesting. How about Virginia Tech taking on Michigan State? Virginia Tech at 9.5 points in this game. The total set at 133. This is going to be going off at 5 o'clock Eastern time here, guys. So if you're watching this, chances are you still got a couple of hours to go here and take a look at these games. But I think these 2 teams are a hell of a lot closer than the line tells us here, Ralph. I think 9.5 points is creating some value here on this game. I think Michigan State, listen, can it be any more emotional than what they've had to go through with Cassius Winston's brother passing and losing the opening game there in Madison Square Garden? It's been rough. And by the way, the Hokies are 7-2 against the number of their last 9 neutral site games. I don't see how they don't do enough to, at the very least, keep this within a 1 or 2 possession game. I think 9.5 points is way too much, Ralph. I think the value lies with Vatek in this one.
Well, the interesting thing is going to be this. I mean, there's probably no bigger difference from one team to the next theme-wise than Virginia Tech. You went from having Buzz Williams to the slowest tempo team And now, you got a Mike Young who comes over from Wofford.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was 20 years at Wofford, maybe
Forever.
17. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But, he got him to 30 wins last year, a 35 record, and that got him to his position. So they're still playing slow. I think he wants to play a little quicker than they're playing. They scored 100 against Delaware State, where you see that he's speeding it up a little bit, but they're still a 3-point shooting team.
Mm-hmm.
And, Michigan State, like a lot of teams, their defense gets better as the season progresses.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just think about Syracuse. You watch Syracuse sometimes in December, you go, what the hell? Is still Jim Boeheim the coach? Where's the defense?
Right.
And then that same team in March is like, okay, the team scored 40. I guess the defense is good.
Now we know.
Michigan State has a great defense. We know that. They have an elite defense, one of the best. But it still takes time for those players to get in gear and learn their sync. And, you've only played a couple games. You got up for Kentucky, you lost, and then you beat Binghamton, and then you got up against Seton Hall, and then you had a nothing game against Charleston Southern. And, oh, yeah, by the way, it may be a week away, but, they have Duke on deck. So, yeah, Maui's nice, but there's still a lot of things that you can look for. So the Hokies and the under in Oakland and Northern Illinois, your two best bets.
That's it. And don't forget, $9 Mondays, guys, wagertalk.com. Get there today. Plays are available. Make sure you check out the Cal Sports page, as well as make sure you talon Ralph on Twitter at Cal Sports LV. So good luck with your plays here tonight. Ralph and I will be back again tomorrow here for another edition of the Happy Hour Tip-Off Show, powered by wagertalk.com. So no matter what you do, good luck today. And Ralph, always a pleasure, my man. Good luck with your plays. We'll talk again tomorrow.
Thanks, Joe. We'll talk to you on Tuesday. Appreciate it, bud.
You got it.